It was the end of our first day at Hwange Bush Camp. Mary Pat and I had such a wonderful time on our first day on African safari. As I explained in the last video, the food served at our camps was top tier. At Hwange Bush Camp, our breakfast each morning was set up next to the fire. This is the perfect way to start the day in nature. By the time the sun had begun to rise, we were finishing up and ready to find some animals. Traveling and exploring is always amazing, but it is not always about the destination. What makes it the best is the journey itself. One of the highlights of travel for me is the people you meet along the way. Case in point, the gal standing behind me, holding the Nikon camera even though Canon is far superior, is a lady named Gay. Gay happened to be on vacation with her sister and brother-in-law, and they happened to pick the same safari camp. She and I hit it off very quickly. Our sense of humor just meshed perfectly, and we would constantly play off of each other. I want to call her my spirit animal, but somebody in this PC world will be offended because they happen to be a second cousin once removed with somebody indigenous. Since Gay can't be my spirit animal, I will call her my squirrel. Here we have my squirrel in her natural habitat. Next, we came across a recently killed baboon. I chose not to post the picture because it is pretty graphic. If anyone wants to see the picture, let me know in the comments, and I'll send it to you privately. After a delicious lunch, one of our group asked if they could see the kitchen and meet some of the staff. They took us on a quick tour. There wasn't much to it. We learned that most of our meals were actually being cooked over a campfire stove. Today, our guides decided to take us on a walking safari not too far from the camp. One of the staff had heard that a local pride of lions had made a kill, so we set out to find them. As we slowly and quietly approached the area, we saw a pride male with a large mane, a lioness, and several cubs feeding on a fresh kudu. We stayed back far enough so we wouldn't disturb them. After a few minutes, we saw the large lion leave. We guessed he left to patrol his land, as the leaders often do. It is important to note that we were far enough away from the pride that we had to take turns using binoculars to see them, because not all of us had a pair to use. As we watched the lions eat the kudu, the lioness went to one side to sit under a shade tree and keep an eye on us. She wanted to protect her pride and her kill, after all. We could hear the big lion had crossed far behind us now because he would roar, and then the lioness would respond. It sounded almost like the two were having a conversation from a distance. And then it happened. The lioness and one of her cubs started creeping toward us, and most of us didn't realize it until they began to run toward us at what looked like full speed. The two lions wanted to make us their next meal. Luckily, our guides saw what was happening and had their rifles ready, just in case. The guides started yelling at the top of their lungs, hoping to scare the two big cats away. A fraction of a second later, the rest of us joined in and started shouting, trying to be as loud as possible. I was able to recall that during our brief orientation on the first day of camp, we were told that if something like this ever happens, it is very important to stand our ground. This is because a lion loves to stalk its prey. If they see you running from them, they're just going to see it as a sport or a challenge, and they're going to want to attack you even more. All but one of us remembered this fact. The one who forgot was in the back of the group. He turned as if he wanted to run away, but luckily our tracker was next to him and reached out his hand to keep him from running. So there we were, screaming at the top of our lungs, in the middle of what I consider to be the scariest moment of my life, watching these two giant beasts sprint toward us. The screaming worked, thank goodness. When the lions stopped charging toward us, it seemed to me that they were as close as about 15 feet from the front of our group. I'm so glad they stopped because our guides were all aiming and ready to shoot. Both of the lions returned to the rest of the pride. As we walked back to our camp, I caught myself saying several prayers in my head, thanking God that the lions had stopped. I got to thinking about the conversation that the pride male and the lioness must have been having. I wonder if he was telling her to attack us.
Wait to see ones like that in an estate sale sometime.
Oh, look at that giraffe back there.
I think they're so freaking cute.
I love them.
Much cuter than javelinas. Javelinas are good.
So Sean, which wild animals are the best kissers?
I'm not too sure.
Sure.
I'll let you experiment with that option.
Sure.